Welcome to another Cuke Audio Phone Chat. I'm DC Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from Sleepy Sanur with Doggett Bandita and Feline Cuchita, and with my squeaky rattan chair. And in a few days, I think, with dear lovely Katrinka. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable and able to get out and do whatever you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. Today's phone chat is with Mike Dixon. Artist name Willard Dixon. And he's got a Zen name too, but I don't know what it is. Didn't think to ask him. He's an old Suzuki Roshi student. So we'll just get going with Mike very soon. But first, I want to tell you a bit about him first. But before we do that, let's pause to meditate. So when you hear the bell, hit pause, meditate, or whatever you call it, or not, for as long as you wish. And when you're ready to come back, hit unpause. And the bell will ring, and we will have all meditated together. So I've known a lot of artists in my life, painters, and I don't think I've known any more successful than Mike. And he does beautiful paintings. If you've been to Green's Restaurant in San Francisco, he did the cloud paintings on the wall there. You can find him on the internet easy at willarddixon.com. Just Google Willard Dixon art, and you'll go to some gallery collections. I'm going to read you a little bit from his website, willarddixon.com. It's a very nice website, very well done. It's not the mess that mine are. Here's artist statement. With the perspective afforded as my practice of painting moves into its 5th decade, I have occasion to reflect on the common spirit that might be running through the work, underlying the different approaches and subject matter that have emerged over the years. What I perceive most clearly in the work that is most successful is a sense of presence and aliveness, and a rightness of form, scale, and color. Somehow through luck, hard work, or some combination of the two, I've been able to find and draw these qualities out of the paint. In my landscapes, that can be achieved through a certain evocation of space and light. In the still lifes, by a concentration on composition and scale and a reduction to essentials. And now in the portraits, engaging similar means in the service of conjuring a human presence. Through it all, I've learned to accept and enjoy the impossibility of having more than a momentary resting place before moving on to another attempt. I do appreciate more and more the way a painting, its spirit arising out of such humble materials, continues to rest silently on the wall, contemplating both itself and the viewer amidst the hurried buzz of our contemporary lives, offering a refuge and occasion for those who desire a deeper and more satisfying engagement of our attention. Wow, pretty good, Mike. And look, here's his biography on his site. Of course, it's pretty bare bones. We talk about that in the phone chat. Born Kansas City, Missouri, 1942. Education, Art Students League, New York City, Cornell University, Brooklyn Museum School, San Francisco Art Institute, MFA, 1969. Wow, he started there a lot before that. God, by 69, I think he was teaching there too. Awards, anyway, he did teach there at some point. Awards and commissions, NEA Fellowship Grant, 1989. National Endowment for the Arts. California Supreme Court Mural Commission, 1998. Las Vegas Federal Courthouse Commission, GSA, 1998. Teaching, San Francisco State University, San Francisco Art Institute, Academy of Art College, San Francisco, California College of Arts and Crafts, Oakland, California State University, Hayward. Then he has a resume. I'm not going to read from that. It just goes on and on, whereas one-man exhibitions, and, in the years, it says, Willard Dixon has had more than 40 one-man shows at these and other galleries. And it lists, a lot. Hey, and then selected private collections. Mr. Harrison Ford, Mr. Peter Duchin, Miss Linda Ronstadt, Miss Faye Dunaway, Mr. Peter Morton, Margie Boyd, Carolyn Graham, Griffin Dunne, Chappie Morris, Rupert Lowenstein, H.J. Hines, Richard Baker, Sabrina Guinness, Peter Asher, Earl McGrath, the late Earl McGrath. Earl McGrath, I knew Earl McGrath. Earl McGrath was president of Rolling Stones International. He was Richard Baker's oldest friend. They were in the Merchant Marine together when they were young. Okay, so I'm going to move now to Mike's Cuke.com interview. And you know what I might do? I think I'll save that for after the phone chat with him, because that's what you came for. But there's a lot of stuff in the interview that we covered. It was 1993. He was one of the early interviews. In fact, I started interviewing people for Crooked Cucumber in 93. But look, I have him on Suzuki Stories. They're on Gook.com. There's interviews, there's Suzuki stories, and there's brief moments where they're shorter stories. So I'm going to read these. And here are a few anecdotes relating to Suzuki and dating from the time we were practicing on Bush Street. Every Saturday morning, we would have an extended period of zazen, including breakfast and a work period. Each Saturday, we would sweep, dust, and scrub this endo in the same manner. I have never been known to be an especially helpful or considerate individual, and this Saturday, I was simply minding my own business, sweeping the floor of the zendo as I had done for years. There was a new student who had joined us that morning, and I noticed that he was standing about apprehensively wondering just what he should be doing. I went to him and handed him my broom without a word. Immediately upon his having taken it, I turned to find Suzuki, whose presence in the room I was previously unaware of, wordlessly offering me his broom with outstretched hand. It was a very significant event for me. Another time, I was at Sokoji in the afternoon on some business or other when Suzuki expressed a desire to see the cherry blossoms, which were enjoying their bloom at the Japanese tea garden in Golden Gate Park. I had never been alone with Suzuki before outside the temple and felt impressed that the two of us were going off somewhere together. All the way to the tea garden and back, he said nothing, but just sat calmly looking out at the passing scene. I thought perhaps he would want to park and make a real visit of it, but as I drove up to the garden and the profusion of pink blossoms came into view, he simply gazed for a moment and then said, "Very beautiful. Let's go back now." I would have said, "No, you can't do that." I would have said no, but I drove him a lot. Oh, what a sense of duty. Once Suzuki and I went on a mission to some obscure yard in an industrial area of San Francisco, I think, to retrieve a shipment of some kind. In any case, we entered one of those small shack-like yard offices where a small group of tough workmen were gathered discussing a football game in a boisterous and somewhat aggressive manner. Suzuki swaggered into this group and immediately started talking about the game in a gruff tone of voice which I had never heard him use before. The men seemed nonplussed until it dawned on them that this was a small, bald-headed, black-robed Japanese person in their midst. I was so impressed with the whole scene that I can remember nothing else that transpired there. Okay, so look, we'll just go right into the interview now. And when the interview is over, I'm going to read stuff from his 1993 interview because it says a number of things that don't come up in his interview. Well, one thing I should say about Mike is that Mike's first wife, Trudy Dixon, mother of their children, was the editor for Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And, she died after completing work on that. She worked with Richard Baker on that, but she was like the lead editor. Trudy was a very important person in Zen Center, and what she did was very important. And Mike was a little more in the background, but to me, he was just as serious a student. He's a modest guy. He's not, well, she was too. But because of her work doing that, and she was such a devoted student, she sort of stood out. Bob Halpern tells a story of driving Suzuki to Mill Valley to sit with Bill Grong's group there. After sitting there and Suzuki gave a talk, he drove Suzuki over to the Dixons and to visit with Trudy. And Trudy was very sick, with cancer. And he said Mike answered the door and was sort of, look, he was obviously quite tired from having been involved with, helping to take care of Trudy. And Bob said at first he thought Mike it looked like somebody with a hangover coming in, opening the door. But he said then he realized it was because of, how tired he was. So Suzuki met with Trudy, and as he came back and they got into the car, Suzuki said to Bob, "Now there's a real Zen master." Trudy had had some sort of awakening toward the end of her life. I wanted to end this podcast with some music from the quintet Mike is in called Studio 5, and it consists of sax, bass, drums, piano, and guitar. But he's only got a CD, there's nothing online, so maybe later I can get some on. But for now, I'm going to end it with a song I wrote years ago somewhere around 1980, called The Painting on the Wall, that I wrote for a painting of Mike's that I got, back in 1966 from him. So here we go. Tell me how you're doing right now. How are you and Pam?
Well, we're doing pretty well. We're healthy, and we're happy to be in our house with our yard, and so as an artist, I feel like I'm doing pretty much the same thing I usually do, which is go out to my studio and paint. And my band is not getting together as much as we would like, but we have gotten together a couple of times outside over at my drummer's house, so that's been nice. But I'm still practicing on my own stuff, so I enjoy that. But so I don't think it's affected me nearly as much as a lot of people. And Pam is still doing her library stuff. And the bookstore has partially opened and stuff. So yeah, we're doing pretty well.
Hey, is any of that music available? I could stick some of your music in at the end of this, if I could get a vinyl. It's great music, man. I love it.
Well, we made we did make a CD, which I recorded, did a number of recordings and edited. Took quite a while, put together a CD. It was when we had a different drummer, and it's quite a while ago now, but there are a couple of good cuts on there.
Have you got a file, like a WAV file or an MP3 of it?
I don't. It's just all I have is the CD. I don't know if I could figure a way I could probably figure out some way to send that to you.
No.
Either.
No. You don't
Not
want to do.
not the CD, but some file or something. If I could figure out how to do that. I wish we had a more recent one. I think we've improved a lot, but actually getting that down on a recording is not so easy.
There is great jazz here. I mean, really good.
Really?
But like one of Indonesia's best known, maybe the best known keyboard players, jazz keyboard players, has it hadn't been open for a few months. He has a school here. He's a wonderful guy, and he has a Friday night jam that is just open to the public, and he owns a little place on a tourist street, a street here that's very touristy in Sanur, and it is so good. Inder Lesmana. There's other jazz here too. There's a lot of bad music too, and and there's gamelan and this and that. So
gamelan,
how are the kids? How's Sophie doing?
Sophie's good. She's she's married to Christian, and she's in Crestone.
Yeah.
But she and Christian are moving to Boulder. They're going to move to the Boulders. They're going to move to the Boulder Zen Center.
Oh.
And so Dick will be at Crestone, and Christian will be at Boulder with Sophie, and so they're in the process of making that move now, and so it's going to be quite a change.
Well, who's going to run Crestone Mountain Zen Center?
Well, Dick is bringing in some people, some locally, and supposedly he's bringing in a couple from Germany. So we'll see how that all works out.
Yeah. Well, they're all good people. But I did go and spend a month in Germany with him at Johannesov.
Oh, did you?
For his 80th birthday and the 20th anniversary. That was about 5 years ago or something. Maybe it was 4 years ago.
I think Dick is 80 I think he's 84.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was 4 years ago, because Katrinka and I got married here 5 years ago.
That's great.
Which was neat. Anyway, so how's your art going? Well,
I've been working away, doing lots of stuff. I have a gallery in Burlingame. There's a young woman there. Her name is Andrea Norris, and she has a really nice gallery. She's been selling a lot of work for me, and she's great. Everything has kind of ground to a halt now because of the coronavirus.
Yeah.
But she's hanging in there as best she can, and she's very energetic, and so hopefully that'll work out okay in the long run for her. But meanwhile, everything in the art world is kind of tanked. There are things, there's a lot of art being sold online now, including mine, and she's done a lot of that, so she continues to do that, but that's slowed down also. So, it all remains to be seen how this all works out. But I did do a series. If you want to see them, you could see them on my Facebook page. If you scroll down a bit, you will see something that a friend of mine put up there, and it includes a website that my dealer put up with a lot of my more recent work, which I call news.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a bunch of paintings that are done from small, usually black and white photos that I take out of the newspaper. and I blow them up and sort of change them around, and so it's like very current stuff. I mean, there's one of 3 migrant boys standing on these desolate tracks, and just, you know, they're images that I find very moving for one reason or another. And I did another one of a Guatemalan family up against the wall, you know, on the southern side, looking off to the right at some event or something. And so, you know, I ended up, I've been doing them for quite a while, and I had not constantly, but every now and then I come back and do another one. Now I've got about 7 or 8 of them. Anyway, there's a bunch of them there on the Facebook page. You can get a link that goes to a site called Artsy, where they have these little virtual shows, and you can see them there. Yeah, I also have a lot of work on First Dibs. That's a big art site. A lot of people are on that, and I've got a lot of work on there that's connected with her gallery.
Do you have? Is the First Dibs listed on the Facebook?
I don't know if that one is. You can just, if you just Google that, you'll go right to their site, and there's a ton of art there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll try to collect all this stuff, get up to date on your Q page. Well, that's neat. That is great. That's great. Well, you came to Zen Center in, let me guess, 64?
I think it was a little earlier, actually. I think it was more like...
No, you were there in 62.
62, 60, yeah. I think it was about 62, yeah.
Yeah, you were there in 62.
End of 62 or so. I can't remember exactly, but...
Oh, I know you were there in 62 because you were around for... when the Zen Center was created, weren't you? When it became, incorporated? That's based on stuff you said in your interview 25 years ago or so.
Well, I don't know, when was that? When Dick decided to...
That was like August of 1962.
Well, I don't know. I might have been. I was treasurer at one point. And then I remember we had a little election to see who was going to be president, and Dick won that by 1 point. I think I came in second because I voted for him. I didn't want to do it. And as soon as that happened, he just started to go. I mean, that's when he just sort of got all these ideas about Asahara and everything else.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. Well, what was it like back then when you arrived?
Well, when I arrived, the first time I went, I went with Shruti to hear a lecture because I was told about it by a friend at art school. He said, there's this Japanese guy. He's really interesting. You should go over and check him out.
Do you remember the friend's name?
No, I don't.
All right.
He was just an art school student that I knew.
Yeah.
And I don't think he was. He never started sitting or anything, but somehow he knew about Suzuki.
Yeah.
So anyway, Trudy and I went over there and heard a lecture, and we started going to some of those, and that was my first introduction to Suzuki. And then he told us that he was meditating and stuff, and one day Trudy and I just sort of looked at each other and said, let's just go over there and start doing it, which is what we did. Yeah. Yeah. So that's how, and when we, so it was just, a relatively small group at that time, and we just went in and sat down, started sitting, and then we went every morning, got up 5:30 or whatever it was, and went over there, and the group, Betty Warren and Della and Gene Ross and Bill Kwong and all those guys.
Paul
Dick
Alexander.
Norm Stiegelmeyer.
Norman Stiegelmeyer. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was a very good friend of mine.
Oh, yeah. What a great guy.
Yeah. Yep.
What an eccentric person he was.
Yeah, very. He was great. Good artist, too.
And I have his book, the big, is it black? I think it's black and white.
Omnibus Extasius and Celestialis.
Yeah, I have that.
That's the one, right? Yeah.
Back in America. Do you remember when you first came, anything that Suzuki said in his talks right before you were sitting that made you and Trudy decide to come sit?
Well, for me, it wasn't so much, some particular idea that he put out there. And, his English was not that terrific, but he had such a strong presence that I was just drawn to him. There's something about him that he just seemed unusual and very interesting, and I just wanted to be around him. It was very hard to say exactly why. And I think she felt one interesting story. I think maybe I told you before, but
don't let that
Trudy
stop
was
you.
studying. Trudy was studying philosophy at UC Berkeley.
Yeah.
In the master's program, and at that time, and she'd always been interested in Heidegger, and she was kind of edging up to these sort of Zen ideas from a Western point of view, you might say. And Suzuki told this little story when we went to one of those lectures before we actually started sitting about somebody that he knew in Japan who was a philosopher who killed himself. And he told that story, and then he looked right at Trudy in a very intense way. And she just went backwards a little bit. Like he really zapped her or something. I don't know what happened there, but something happened. Yeah. Yeah, and that reminds me. And then I was one time after one of those lectures, I was walking down the stairs, and just before my head disappeared, I looked up through the banister.
Yeah.
For some reason, and Suzuki was looking right at me. That was sort of zapped me right there.
So now, where were you born?
I was born in Kansas City, Missouri in 1942.
Hey, where was Dave Hazelwood and Michael McClure from?
Can't say I really know. Is it the same place?
I think they were from Kansas.
I remember Dave Hazelwood quite well. I was friendly with him. He was a cool guy.
Yeah, no kidding.
Printer, wasn't he? He's a printer, wasn't he?
Yeah, he started this
Arahan Press.
Arahan Press.
Arahan. Yeah.
And it's still going. It was bought by some
Oh, is it?
Germans or something.
Oh, that's cool.
When did you first get interested in art? I'd like to know what sort of your art path and your spiritual path is.
Well, I used to draw a lot when I was a kid and stuff, and was always interested. And then I went to Cornell to study architecture. But I'd been doing some painting in high school and really enjoying and getting into that a lot, and getting good feedback, on it and stuff. But I just to be kind of practical, I decided I'd better, study something where I could make a living or something. I don't know what it was, but anyway, I got into Cornell and studied architecture, but I only lasted about a half a year or so. And then I left, and I decided I wanted to be an artist. And then I went to the Brooklyn Museum art school, on the suggestion of my architecture professor, Harold Hartel, who was also a painter. So I ended up studying with Ruben Tam at the Brooklyn Museum, and then after that relatively brief time at the Brooklyn Museum, I ended up working at the ranch where I met Trudy in Wyoming for a summer job, and then I went to California from there.
You were talking about you were at this that was very interesting. You got some summer work on a ranch in Wyoming?
Yes.
How did that come about?
Well, that came about because my uncle went to Princeton with Trudy's father.
Oh.
If I'm remembering that correctly. And my parents thought I should do something or get out of there and do something different anyway. Somehow I ended up there, which was quite unusual. And I really enjoyed that. But I left, and then I left that job early and convinced this guy that I met there who turned out to be also an artist eventually, and that we bought this old wreck of a car and drove out to California.
And all right, well, that's where you met Trudy.
I met her at the ranch. Yeah, it was her family's ranch.
Yeah. Well, when did you see her? Yeah, I'm interested in. You left. Did you and Trudy hit it off when you were there? I mean, did you get along real well?
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we had something going there. So and that was the other reason. So I decided, well, I want to go to California because she's going to Berkeley, so I can see her, and then I can also go to the San Francisco. I can see if I can get into the San Francisco Art Institute, which I'd heard about in Brooklyn. You see. So I went. I moved there. I went to the Art Institute, and I met this black guy, Don Samuels, who was also a student at the Brooklyn Museum there.
So
that was really unusual. So we decided we got a apartment together in the Fillmore, the two of us.
Whoa, where in the Fillmore?
Pierce and Steiner.
Let's see,
It was pretty funky. It was pretty fun. We were right next to a little sort of junkyard that was in between two buildings. All black people in the building, and so it was a real trip.
I lived in the Fillmore in '66 a little. What was it like? I mean, it was a little dangerous when I lived there. And I lived at Fillmore and O'Farrell, right by the Fillmore Auditorium, right next door.
Yeah, it was. Well, yeah. I think it was a little dangerous. I just didn't seem to bother me much in those days. But I never was, attacked or anything. But
I was.
Were you?
And the woman in the apartment next to me was murdered.
Oh boy!
And Mother begged me to move. So I moved near, much closer to. See, I was sitting at Zen Center when I was there, and I got mugged on my way walking to Zazen at 5 a.m.
I guess I was lucky.
Yeah.
We had a black family live right across the hall from us, and they were really sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And we became friendly with them. Maybe that helped a little or something. I don't know. Yeah. And she knew a lot of musicians, John Handy and and this vibes player that I knew I forget his name. He ended up marrying the daughter there, Mary, and yeah. So I don't know. I guess, and also because I was living with a black guy, but he was from the West Indies. He spoke the King's English and everything, so he was a little different.
Well, it didn't help me who I was. I mean, I liked living there. I'd hang out and talk with people downstairs. There was a nice, friendly scene. And they made fun of me when I moved away. They said, "You're moving away because that woman got killed." And they made fun of me for doing that. But, I got mugged on the way to Zazen in the morning. Those guys didn't know who I knew or what I was doing. Heck, I'd been a civil rights worker. But I didn't. There wasn't any time to appeal to them.
Right, yeah. Tell your story, right?
It happened real quick. Look, they knocked me down, and I flipped my wallet up in the air to them before they could move.
Oh, boy.
And there was like $1 in it. And then he took that and kicked me in the head, and it hurt for days. And they walked on, so it wasn't so bad.
Yeah, that's a drag.
Yeah.
Well, one guy came up to me on Fillmore Street and said, "Give me $1," like that. So I gave him $1 and walked away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So, there you are there. What happened next?
Well, Trudy and I then we, and she would come over and spend the weekend because she was going to Berkeley and she had a little apartment over there. But then we moved across town to Larkin and Pacific, and a little apartment on Larkin and Pacific. And then that was when we went heard the Suzuki lectures, and then eventually started sitting. So we were living, and then we got married. So, and then we had Annie.
You got married by whom?
By Suzuki.
And what year was that?
Let's see. That would probably be about. I'm terrible on dates, but so I'll say it was probably like 60, 64 or 5 or something.
And then, all right, so you're at the Art Institute.
Yep, we got in. And then I just started doing that. So, that was good. I enjoyed that. A lot of good artists were there at that time, and Stephen Korn, Bischoff, Jim Weeks, some well-known people. Fred Martin was a good, the most important person to me personally. He was he eventually became head of the school there, but he had a wonderful art history course that everybody took and was always talking about. And he encouraged me because I was not doing what other people were doing then. I was doing everybody was doing.
What do you mean by that?
Kind of abstract expressionism or California figurative work, like Stephen Korn or something. And I was doing sort of surrealist collages and constructions and things like that. So I was really kind of an oddball. But Fred tuned in and really kind of encouraged me in what I was doing and stuff.
Well, I first saw your paintings in '66, like in the fall, and I bought one at the show for raising money for Tassajara.
Poster. I did the poster for that. I designed the poster for that. And I'm the one who asked Suzuki to do the Enso, the circle for that.
Oh, you made history.
That's the one that became the great logo for Zen Center.
Right. I got he made, there were copies of it, or he was making a bunch, and I got one signed.
Oh, really?
I said, hey, would you sign this? And he signed it. I don't know where it is.
Oh, no.
I mean...
the original, I said, I had this minimal idea. I don't know if you ever saw that poster. It just has this minimal sort of names at the bottom. It's on an ivory colored paper. And then I got this idea of a circle. I asked Suzuki if he could just draw a circle for me. So he took a couple of days, and then he finally just gave it to me. And that was it. I think the original for that is at Crestone. If I'm not mistaken, I've seen it there in the office.
You think the original art that you're talking about is at Crestone?
If I'm not mistaken, I've seen it a number of times in the office when I was there, and I thought if it is the original, I thought maybe Dick got a hold of it at some point, and that's how it ended up there.
So I want to get a scan of it and put it on Cube. That's great. Is Christian still around? He's still there, right?
He's still there right now. I believe, yeah. I don't think they're going to be moving till about the end of the month sometime.
All right. Good. Hey, that's neat. So the painting I got was of the one you did of Agate Beach in Bolinas.
Yeah.
And I think it was $300, which was a lot back then. But and then you know where it is now. I lived with Liz.
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth.
Liz, yeah.
Liz Twomey, who was before me, was married to Arthur Okamura for 20 years or something.
Yeah.
And so I gave it to her.
Okay.
because I thought it should be at Agate Beach, and she always told me, "Well, this is yours. Because we broke up after 8 or 9 years." But I'd go back and see her. She'd say, "This is yours. Take it." I'd say, "No, no, I want it here." She'd say, "Well, you can have it any time you want." But after she died, uh, it naturally stayed there. I couldn't get it. That is a landscape painting with your very lovely, soft feeling you have in those. I don't know how to describe it, but now you're talking about being at the Art Institute just a few years before, doing surrealistic collages, or what were you saying?
Yeah, painting, collages, and constructions. I really like constructions,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like Joseph Cornell, or you know what I'm talking about, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, how would you describe the work you're known for with like the painting I got?
Well, the ones I'm most known as, primarily as a landscape painter.
And what is your what type of materials?
Just oil on canvas,
Yeah, all right.
But then I also did a lot of still life work, which I sold a lot of those. I've been doing those for years. And then after that, I spent 3 years just doing portraits.
I remember you did one of me.
Yeah, I did you and a lot of artists and a couple of family members and stuff. And so I've kind of done everything, but definitely landscape is what I'm more primarily known for.
How is it described? Because see, I think of it as soft and I see a lot of blue, blue and green, and it has a very mellow, soft, peaceful feeling.
Yeah. People generally feel a sort of peacefulness about it, even meditative sometimes. Atmospheric perspective.
Well, you did the wonderful cloud paintings that are at Green's Restaurant.
Yeah, then I got into doing a lot of kind of those are, have more of an abstract feel, and it was kind of fun because you can sort of be an abstract painter even though you're a realist when you're doing clouds and stuff, because you can just kind of take off on that and do whatever you want because it's not so restricting,
Hey, you remember where you rented a space at Fort Mason right near Greens, and we're doing this really large piece for Shell Oil in Houston? That's
right. Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Long time ago.
That was one of the first big ones I did.
That was really big. How big was that?
Well, I think that one was only about 25. And then later I did a 40-foot painting for the Oakland Museum.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then I did a 34-foot painting for the California Supreme Court, which is still there.
Really?
Yeah. It's on my website.
Okay, that's the closest I'll get right now. Well, you know who I took to see you? He said he went to your opening there in Houston.
Who's that?
I took a fellow over to see what you were doing. A guy named Roger Wallace, who's I was in high school with, very close. well, our politics were very different, but he would visit me when he was here. He was a campaign manager for Reagan and
Oh.
Bush, and I don't know it. He was a lead campaign manager. I don't know if he was the number one or where. And he in the Reagan administration, he was head of protocol in the State Department. And what Roger was always into was art, and he he just loved visiting you and seeing
Oh.
that. And he was in the oil business in Texas. He was living in San Antonio at the time, but he went to Houston for the there was some event for that painting, and he saw you there.
I've forgotten all about that.
He's not a Republican anymore.
Pretty hard to be now.
He quit. Well, he quit the party a while back, and so we can see that painting too online, huh?
Yeah. Well, I've got a lot of stuff on my website there. WillardDixon.com.
So your name, I always think of you as Mike Dixon, but Willard Dixon is your artist's name.
Yeah.
So, what's your birth name? Your full birth name?
Willard Michael Dixon.
Okay. I really didn't know.
I come from a long line of Willards.
Huh.
First sons. And my son is Willard Christopher, and his son is Willard Benjamin.
Oh, that's...
I am Willard Michael. My father is Willard Watson. His father was Willard Peck, and his father was Willard Jerome.
So you're all Willards, but none of you were juniors, etc. Yeah, my father was a junior, and he didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
He resented his father. Maybe that's why.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really neat. So, you were successful right away, it seems to me. I mean, you were in the Art Institute.
Well, I wouldn't. No, it wasn't until I didn't really start selling paintings for quite a while. I taught,
Where'd you teach?
San Francisco. I taught. I taught all over the place. First at Cal State Hayward, then California College of Arts and Crafts, then I did a little thing at the Art Institute, just one shot. I did San Francisco State. I did Academy of Art College in San Francisco. And, yeah, so I only taught for 5 or 6 years, and then I was able to quit because then I actually started selling some paintings.
Somebody told me, maybe it was Mel, because it was in one of the, I was on the phone. I mean, who would know that I've talked to, that the Art Institute is going to close or fold?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know exactly because there's a group that's trying to sort of keep things going or something, but I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen. I just read about that online fairly recently, and they're trying to gin up some interest from people who want to try to do something to keep it together, but boy, I don't know if that's going to happen.
So many people came to Zen Center from the Art Institute. Is
that right?
I think I have a list of them. I think I have a page for it. Just enormous number. either, Philip Wilson and
Oh, was Phil there? I didn't know that.
yeah. In fact, he got interested in meditation from modeling.
Oh yeah, I remember he was a model.
Yeah. Maybe he wasn't. Yeah, he was. I can't remember, but it was through the Art Institute. And I'm not going to try to list all the names, but there's many. Virginia Baker and.
And Pam was. My wife was at the Art Institute also.
Right.
Yeah.
So, say, going back to the Zen world, there, how would you describe your spiritual path? Like your way-seeking mind story. Did you have an interest in meditation or religion or philosophy or anything?
Well, I was raised as a Catholic.
Uh-huh.
And I had some nice experiences as a Catholic. When I was young, right around Easter time.
Like what?
Well, in those days they were still doing the Latin Mass.
Yeah.
Which is, much more mysterious and kind of interesting in a way. And then going through that thing of Good Friday and Easter, which is such an ancient rite,
Yeah.
The death and the rebirth and all that, spring and in the church where I grew up and where I went, they did a really nice job with that. On Good Friday, everything is totally bare. The sacristy is, where they usually keep the host and everything is empty. It's open. But you could put your hand in there. It's just, and no flowers, no nothing, totally bare, no music, no nothing. And so that's Christ dying, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then you come in on Easter Sunday, and you have incense, you have music, you have massive flowers, you have the priests in golden robes, you have singing. It's just marvelous. You see that whole thing played out, before your eyes. It's really very powerful. So, yeah, that was a interesting, kind of a memorable experience for me when I was young. I don't know, technically speaking, or how it all led to Zen. I had a good friend who was I used to spend a lot of time with. He was very eccentric, but he somehow discovered Zen, and he was talking about that, in like the 50s and stuff. When nobody else hardly was at all. I didn't get into it at that point, but I'd heard little inklings of it and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I guess after I saw Suzuki, it was just seeing him and being in his presence that really inspired me, I guess.
Yeah.
And I sort of felt like one of the reasons we decided to go, and at least I decided to go, was at the time I was feeling kind of wobbly, or I don't know how to put it, like I might just blow away in the breeze or something. So I felt like I needed some kind of grounding or some kind of weight, and somehow Suzuki seemed to know about that, and so I just started going.
And how did that turn out? Pardon me.
Well, I'm still doing it. I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
But mostly on my own now. I was sitting this morning.
Yeah.
I sit every day, you know. So I'm still doing it.
Me too.
Yeah.
I used to be addicted to sitting with other people, and I love sitting alone. Now, I do a little. I have done retreats. I've done Vipassana retreats here. I'm 75 now. Wow, they're hard.
In Bali?
Huh? Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're really good Vipassana retreats here.
Oh, really? Okay.
With Burmese. I mean, there's different types. I do them in a Buddhist temple up north that was founded by the great Balinese Theravadan teacher and Bhante Giri, and the Dalai Lama came to the founding of that.
Yeah. I've been painting while we've been talking here.
Oh, neat.
I not the whole time, but the last 20 minutes or something. It's part of this one. Looks like it's going to be part of my news series.
Oh, I'm really looking forward to seeing that. Oh, hey, I did want to ask you something. You and Trudy and Pam and Hal were close, and with you all and the Bakers, Dick and Jenny.
Yeah, and the Stiegelmeyers.
And the Stiegelmeyers. Oh yeah, God, she's German.
Yeah, it was the four couples.
Uh-huh.
We just did everything together. It was really great.
Oh.
Really nice time.
Oh.
Yeah.
And when did you and Pam get together?
We got together sometime after Trudy died.
Oh. And
of course, we'd known each other for years, but
and what happened to Hal?
Well, she and Hal got divorced.
Do you know what happened to him?
He's living in New Mexico. I forget where.
Is that right?
Yeah, somewhere in New Mexico. Dick has seen him a few times.
Is that? Oh my gosh! You think he'd talk to me?
God, I don't know.
I mean, you know, there's people who don't want to talk about the past.
I honestly, I don't know. I kind of doubt it, but I don't know. No.
Yeah. I sort of have that feeling. All right. Well, then the next one is I'd really like to talk to Pam, and I never could get her to, but you know I have a problem. Is that it's just all males. I'm putting on these podcasts. I had Peter and Jane Schneider. Just when did they go up? Last Saturday, recently. So she was the first female on these phone chats, and I'm, this is like the 11th one, and she shared it with Peter, and that was the third time he'd been on, and. But I would love to have have a female voice.
Well, I'll mention that
and
too.
There are some women I can talk to that arrived later on, but And incidentally, I'm trying to get hold of Pauline right
Yeah.
now. I've seen
Where
a
is
lot
she
of
now?
Pauline through the years. Uh, she's down
Okay.
in Ojai. Her husband died not long ago. Um, and he was European. I can't remember from where right now. Was he Dutch or what? And he was. But she was Hideko, Graham's wife after Pauline. Hideko saw Pauline not long ago, uh, and Pauline dropped by the house for some reason.
I haven't seen Pauline for years and years.
Oh yeah, she's
Yeah.
a trip, man, and I'd really like to get her on, but I didn't have a phone number, so I wrote and I sent her an email.
And her mother was really a trip.
Yeah, her mother's ashes are at Tassajara. What do you remember about her mother?
Oh, she's just this powerful sort of. She seemed very knowledgeable about spiritual things, but almost more occult or something. I can't remember, but
But she was a
yeah,
theosophist.
theosophist. Yeah, and she was she's she she's very strong sort of person, and had a lot of strong ideas about you know what was going on with Zen and everything else.
Oh, was she into the Illuminati and stuff like that?
Well, she also seemed very sophisticated, as I remember. I remember she talked about these artists and people she knows. She would say they're not house trained.
Well, she was the key to Graham's and Pauline's the trajectory of their lives.
Hmm.
Uh, it was her library that turned Graham on to
Is that
Buddhism.
right?
Yeah, in let's see now. Graham ran into Pauline in Rome. He was he was there. He was there seeking, truth at the Vatican,
Okay.
going to the heart of it.
Yeah.
And uh, he had been with some brothers in a Catholic
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
something
Hmm.
in England,
Hmm.
and he at first Episcopalian, but he was, he was on a path, but he was disillusioned in Rome. I think that's so funny. I mean, what would you expect? My gosh. But then he runs into Pauline, and then he runs into her mother's library. And Pauline met Krishnamurti and D.T. Suzuki when she was a teenager through her mother.
Oh, really? Uh huh. And her that was Julia Blocky, right? Isn't that
Oh,
right?
I don't know. I didn't know the mother. Uh, and and Graham would always just refer to her as my mother-in-law. But she went to Japan and lived with them there, and she was living with them around Zen Center.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, she was. She used to come around. She came to our house when Trudy and I were living together, but she's a real force, um,
Ah,
powerful
ah.
kind of person. Yeah, powerful female at that for that time.
Uh-huh.
She had
Oh,
very strong opinions and really seemed to know what was happening. Interesting. Yeah, always remember her.
that's neat to hear. I never really heard a description of her before. I just knew she was, with them. She was close with them, and Graham really liked her. And
Yeah.
now she wanted Suzuki. She did want Suzuki to ordain her, to give her a priest. Not
Oh,
a
really?
priest. Pardon me. No, no, I said the wrong word. To give her a lay
Yeah,
ordination,
yeah.
and he
Hmm.
wouldn't do it. He said
Yeah.
he wouldn't do it because she didn't sit zazen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he learned not. He got to where he didn't trust people. If he wanted commitment after a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew this woman who had an art gallery, and she's a very attractive little lady, and she was interested in Zen. She would occasionally, go there and sit. And she said, "Oh, it's very easy for me to sit. Like I can just sit down and do half lotus or full lotus. Is no problem for me." And then she said, "Well, I think I should get a robe or a priest robe." She's only been like 3 times or something. And then I talked to somebody at Zen Center, I forget who it was, and they said, "Oh yeah, she came around and she told them that she thought she should get a robe or something." And he said, "Well, just come on over tomorrow and start sitting." Of course, she never came. You really wonder what some people are up to.
Well, one of the big differences between Japanese and Americans, I mean, he loved the sincerity and the enthusiasm of Americans, but he learned, if a Japanese person came to him and said, "I want to dedicate my life to Buddhism," they'd do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're dependable, and they have an extremely strong sense of duty.
Yes.
And the social pressure on them is enormous and stuff.
Yeah.
Americans don't have that. They'll say that, and then, after some time they'll get disillusioned. But one thing is, in Japan, there was so much context, there was so much tradition, so much history, that they knew what they were getting into.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So in America, it was something new, so people would have ideas about it from what they'd read or whatever.
Which didn't jibe with reality.
No. But he liked it. He liked it, and he preferred teaching in English. And yeah. Well, that's very interesting. Very interesting, all of it. Okay.
All right.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Okay, David.
All right. Thanks a lot. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. So thanks a lot, Mike Dixon. That was really most enjoyable talking to you. Always good to talk with Mike. So I'm going to take a look at his interview here. With this nice little birdie in the background, huh? I got to find out what that bird is called, what type of bird it is. Oh, this says it was done in mid-1994, I guess. I don't know. I think about 93. Because of what I don't know in it, which is I don't know about the Suzuki's very early students. So I learned that pretty soon. Looking into it, I didn't know about Bill McNeil and Bob Hitz, and I didn't know about Gene Ross and Betty Warren and Della Gertz. Meeting him right away and starting to sit with him. Took me a little while to learn all that. I knew Betty and Della and Gene, but I just had never talked to them about that specifically, like when they came. I have a quote at the first. That means something I took out of it. In the long run, my own life, meeting Suzuki and following the way he taught me, has colored everything. It's something that continues. I feel now that I'm getting older, more of the pull into practice. It's different now. In many ways, it's a lot easier to practice now. There's so much baggage that's gone. Boy, I hear you on that, man. It says, trying to remember when I first saw him, somebody at the Art Institute told me I should go over and see this guy. I did go over. That was probably 62 or so. I went and started wanting to go back. I had this feeling of somebody is a lifelong friend, or that somehow is going to be very important in your life. It's unexplainable, really. It's hard to say exactly why. Some feeling of trust there, and you trust your own feelings about that person. He seemed so interesting. There seemed to be so much attention of some kind there. It was something you just naturally wanted to continue. I was leaving the first lecture that I went to. I was walking down the stairs at Sokoji, and just as my head got about to the floor level, I looked through the banister posts. As I was almost disappearing from view, I looked into the room, and he was looking right at me. Yeah, he tells that in the interview, but he didn't say it was the first time he sat. That was neat. Not first time he sat, first time he came at all to a lecture. So I'm, skipping through here, skipping some stuff he said. So I say, what was his teaching? It was practice, zazen. To me, that was the essence of it. One time we had Doksan. Doksan's the private interview. He asked me if I had any questions. I said, zazen answers my questions. He said, yes, that's right. If there's a pencil here on the tatami and all of a sudden it's gone, one person will say, oh, somebody stole my pencil. Another person will say, somebody just borrowed my pencil. I took that to mean that you can really only answer your own questions. That's curious, huh? So much Zen stories people have who've studied with somebody. Some of the stories that are most important to them are very, very subtle things. And a lot of what was most important that happened in a person's practice is something, it's hard to tell. Since I like to tell stories, I gravitate toward the juiciest stories, but they're not necessarily the most profound. I guess I try to do the most profound too. He says, our mind, after sitting for some sessions, just naturally calms down. We would think about enlightenment. What is it? Is it something we were going to get? The idea of it. It seemed like the more we went on, the more we wondered if there really was any such thing. Suzuki used to say things like, on my second enlightenment, ... I say, well, he didn't say things like that later on. Mike says, I remember him saying things like that. Like you might have a small enlightenment here or a larger one later, or you might have many enlightenments. That was my feeling. That is my own experience, and I think that's true. I'd say that, well, Ananda said that Suzuki always maintained he wasn't enlightened. Yeah, Ananda, Claude Dallenberg really hung on to that. I've certainly heard him on both sides of that. Mike says, well, if you say you are, you aren't. But you can't say that you aren't either. You don't say that you are, and you don't say that you aren't. Suzuki told me once, he said, I knew a farmer in Japan who was just like a Zen master. He was a natural man, a simple man, but he was to all intents and purposes a Zen master. The only difference was that if you said to him, "You are a Zen master," he would say, "No, I'm not." Now, Mike's talking about Suzuki here. He had a kind of innocence. You would have to go through a lot of stuff to come out on the other side and say, "Ah, so desu ka." Is that so? Or something like that. Or not, to deny it, not to claim it. Mike says, well, I think he was beyond enlightenment or not enlightenment. To think about that is to miss the point. And I think that was Suzuki's teaching. We don't want some fancy idea about practice or some excessive experience. The point is just to see things as they are in the moment and not to attach to things, to let things change as they go and let them come and go out. That's more interesting than being enlightened. As soon as you become attached to any enlightenment you might have had, it will be a barrier to you. People who talk about it that way are asking for trouble. Hear, hear, Mike. Well said. He says his teaching was so focused on not being caught by anything or attached to any particular idea. And then here he says, as soon as you sit, your enlightenment is there. Stuff like that, Suzuki said all the time. You hear that enough to begin to believe that's right, which on the other hand doesn't mean, and Suzuki said one time, you shouldn't just sit on the steps and play your guitar all day, meaning that you don't just give up and do nothing because everything has Buddha nature. And I say, a quote from him is, everything you do is right, nothing you do is wrong, yet you must still make a constant effort. And Mike says, I would have the feeling in sesshin especially that it was there all the time with him, that you would think you were putting out this huge effort. You didn't have much more to give, but just by looking at him, you would feel that you just barely started, hadn't even scratched the surface yet. There just seemed to be this infinite well of intention or effort that was under there somewhere. I think our whole thing about enlightenment is, in a way, a kind of, he used to talk about candy. He'd say it's okay to give young students some candy so they would get involved here and get going on something. But really, you have to be careful about that. Like selling intoxicating liquor is the same thing. Yeah, that's right, Suzuki would say. The precept not to sell intoxicants. He said, that means don't sell Buddhism. Mike says, I think a lot of it has to do with building up the intensity effort. It's the effort which does lead to a kind of breakthrough. Enlightenment is not something you get. Enlightenment is realizing something that's already there. It's more like getting rid of than getting something. I think that's the big mistake that everybody tends to make. They think they're getting some experience from outside that they never had. When you build that kind of intensity of effort that you can experience in a session, it tends to strip away stuff more than anything else. Then you're just left with yourself. That's enlightenment, I think. And I say, but he didn't want us to think we had to sit session all the time. And Mike says he didn't seem to like us to think that that was more important than everyday life. So I'd say, so who was around? And he says, Betty Warren, Della, Trudy, myself, Dick, Bill Kwong, Phil Wilson, Norm Stiegelmeyer, Graham Petchy, Paul Alexander, Fran Keller, Mel, and Ed came a little later. Yeah, Mel came in 64 and Ed came in 66. Ed and his brother Dwight. Mill was living at one point with Daniel Moore, the visionary ecstatic poet, who used to smoke a lot of dope, right? A lot of people did. Mel moved into his house. Mel played recorder. Mel taught me how to read music. I got my flute, and we used to play music together, and I learned how to read with him. That was before he came to Zen Center. I think Dan Moore brought him to Zen Center. That's right. One thing that happened between Suzuki and myself, I don't think I've ever told anybody. In his office one time, I was facing away from him, and he said, "You know, you have to be my successor." My blood went cold. I pretended that I didn't hear anything. I left the room. I thought about that for a while. I never mentioned it to him, and he never mentioned it to me. I figured he probably tried that out on a lot of people. Nah, not so. I never heard that story from anybody, Mike. That was just for you. But, you know, what I say to that is I say, well, he said to me once that we'd be starting temples all over and people would be going out and Zen Center would spread. He said I should go to Texas and start a temple in Texas. I said, no, I'm not going to Texas to start a temple. So, well, in a sense, Mike, or I said that to a lot of people, he was telling you he wanted you to be his successor and to, you know, to teach, right? And he was telling me that. And both you and I have, even though I'm really involved in, you know, the Zen world in this way, this informational way, I dropped down to the, you know, the thing about being a teacher, and you did too, but, or I should say Mike did too. I'm talking like I'm talking to him right now. But each of us in our own way are continuing Suzuki Roshi's teaching. Mike says, I have a feeling now that he was just putting out feelers for possibilities in those days. Who was up for it? And I definitely wasn't. I was trying to be an artist, and the idea of leading a Zen thing or having any responsibility beyond a certain point was not what I wanted. Well, you're still doing it. You know, I'm going to stop now. There's a lot of good stuff there, but really it's very long. We go on and on and on. Got a lot to say, a lot to offer. Take a look at his interview on Cuke.com. Take a look at his art. Buy one of his paintings. Maybe we can get some. I'm planning to get his music up on Cuke.com. Now that's the CD he has is an old one. And he said they're doing better now. Listen, I heard their music back then. It sounded great. And I grew up around music, and I like jazz. It's terrific. Well, all right. There we have it. Oh, so I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to say goodbye, and then I'm going to end, instead of the bell from Eiheiji, the deep, low bell, I'm going to end with the song I wrote for Mike's painting. It's a painting of Agate Beach. Now, I bought that painting in '66. I liked it very much. And it's a painting of Agate Beach in Bolinas, which is like it's not a sandy beach, and it's actually not agate. I don't think Liz told me it was, who had the house right there, told me it was moonstone, but I don't know. That's what I remember her telling me. So I bought that in '66, and it has a picture of an easel, is that what you call it, with a painting on it that's sort of small on it. I think it's red. I've written Ethan Okamura, who has it on his wall, and asked him to take a picture of it, and he's a fantastic photographer. Just look at Ethan Okamura Photography online. Anyway, years later, that was 66. Well, in 76, 10 years later, I started living with Liz. And one day I realized that that beach behind her house was the same one with that painting. And I got that painting and I put it on the wall. Actually, I put it first on the wall of an apartment I had next to the San Francisco Zen Center City Center. I always had a place right by where my ex, Diane Goldschlag, was living, so that she and Kelly, our son, and I could be near each other in the city. And then when she moved to Mirror Beach, I built a little cabin at Yvonne Rand's place. So I was living half-time in Bolinas with Liz, and then half-time either in the city or by Green Gulch Farm. In the song, I'm in the city looking at it on the wall, thinking about, well, that's enough. And boy, I had an experience with it that was very upsetting. A very prominent lawyer borrowed it from me, and I couldn't get it back. He wouldn't give it back to me. That's a whole drawn-out story. I did get it back through, it was a miracle. And anyway, that was almost a traumatic experience. I love that painting. So I put it on Liz's wall. Liz told me, and it's still there. So I found two versions of it on diffusermusic.com, my music site. One of them is a little higher, much higher quality. It's got a nice sounding bass. Doug McKechnie recorded it in his studio. Then I was playing it very much like the other one. And it was just in December of that year, 1978. I'm going to play the one I recorded right at the time that I wrote it, which was in January of 78. And it's very low quality. I recorded it on little, back then, good Lord. Well, I just recorded it into a tape recorder. And I was playing the guitar a lot better then than I can now. I've never been a very good guitar player. I've just concentrated on writing songs. Back then I was writing a song every day, so I could play better. I don't play much at all now. I also chose this one because it's just got some feeling. Listen, I cried when I heard it. So, it brought me back there. So you'll hear it after the goodbye. So this has been another Cuke Audio phone chat. I'm DC Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from sleepy Sanur, with Dogette Bandita and Feline Cuchita in my rickety, squeaking rattan chair. And soon with dear lovely Katrinka, who's scheduled to arrive at 3:45 p.m. on Friday. Yay! And then there'll only be 2 weeks of us maintaining distance. But we can walk to the beach and stuff. And so, wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.
Now I sit in a swivel chair on this Tuesday afternoon. There is nothing natural here. From Johnny Appleseed's point of view, and I stare in my room in a lazy sudden draw at the canvas and the oil that are the painting on the wall. Now my son has left a mess that almost rivals mine. There are magazines, toys, clothes, debris scattered to this room's horizon. Soon I will turn on cages and sweep and clean it all. But for now, I sit here gazing at the painting on the wall. Now, Mike, you've been down on the agate beach with a paintbrush in your eye. I'm glad nobody pulled it out. You sure got the refraction, low tide, soft light, just right. Now Liz is out there playing with some Mozart on the keys. In an hour I could be there with her, walking on that beach. There where the artist once came to call. But instead, I'll spend the day here with the painting on the wall.